Now we move into this time of prayer as we gather together today, and just a couple of added things. You'll see in your bulletin that the General Conference of the United Methodist Church, and y'all have probably heard me talking about this. They begin their diligent work this week, and for anybody who wants a crash course on General Conference, it's 10 days of nonstop action, discussion, and debate, and so it's that interesting. But what they are doing is coming together. They're taking the theology that grounds our church, and they're asking the important question of then how do we live this life called church, community, called United Methodism together. And there's a lot to be said in that question. Because I think as we see, for a lot of us, that life looks different. But to me, I think that's one of the greatest things about God's kingdom, is that we can all ask that question. We can all have conversation around that question. Hopefully, out of that, we can find a manner in which we can live and exist together. It does not mean that our life together is perfect, because perfection is impossible. And that may sound weird for your pastor to say, because perfection is impossible. But what is not impossible in God's love and grace is to continue to strive for perfection. It may sound weird to gather together knowing that what will come out of that time is going to be imperfect. But it would be even more imperfect if we leave our time together not asking the questions and not having the conversations. And it would not be a good time together if in that conversation we did not treat each other with Christian love. Holy conversation is a deeply embedded part in our United Methodist tradition. Gathering together and having conversation about those tough things is exactly what this denomination was built on. And I talk about this denomination because this is a denomination where we all have found a home of faith. And we've covenanted together as part of this home of faith, finding a sliver of God's kingdom in this church. And it's tough when we don't necessarily always agree with what we see coming down from the top. But the last thing that I want it to do is to impact the life that we have together here. No matter what they decide in Charlotte, and there's going to be a lot of decisions made. The church that we gather in on May the 5th, because General Conference doesn't end until May the 3rd, the church that we gather in May the 5th, it's going to be the same church. They're going to have the same pastor on May the 5th. Yes, we will have a new guide that will lay a foundation for our lives together. And that will be a point of conversation for us. Nobody is forcing anybody to do anything. Know that. What the General Conference and our Book of Discipline does is give us a guide for how to live our lives together, for the conversations that we can have, for the way that we can develop an understanding of community. As your pastor, I never seek to hide anything. I never seek to hold anything back. I just want us all to be in community together despite our differences. And I hope that you genuinely hear that, and that even when we may disagree, because we are going to all disagree with one another, I want you to know this before we pray. I will always love you. I don't care if we disagree on everything. I will always love you. And I hope that you will always love me. Because I'm going to be your pastor for a little while. Because along with that, along with connecting back to our denomination, today is Announcement Sunday. And my announcement as your pastor is that I'm going to be here for another year. And so There's a lot of conversation that goes into that. I'm not dumb enough to think as a pastor that everybody loves me. I'm not dumb enough as a pastor to think everybody agrees with me. But again, my hope is that we grow together. My hope is that we learn and grow as Christians together, and that our differences help to guide that conversation forward. Because I'm going to be here another year. We continue to have to figure out how we are in community with one another. That's one of the lovely things offered by us in this denomination, is this intentionality of community and this authenticity of sending pastors places. Because for me to be sent here for 1, 2, 3, 4, now a 5th year, this will be my longest I've ever been at a church. We have to work together. And so I think in that we pray for our denomination. We pray for our conference and for the leaders in our conference. And we pray for this church because, friends, we are still in the midst of discerning new leadership styles. And we're going to have some information coming out about that here soon of next steps on that. And we're still discerning what our ministry looks like going forward. And so I know I took a little bit extra time, but I think it's important for these ideas, these concepts, these things to be lifted up. And so I want us to all be in prayer for the next 10 days for all those people. And again, if you follow, you're not going to agree. I can almost guarantee that. But please don't let it affect the community that we have here at this church. If it begins to affect this community, that's a decision that we can make together. But let's let it all bring us closer together, knowing that despite our differences, we are one in Christ.